What is going on, everyone? We are back with episode 4, where we're going to be talking about love bombing and red flags. I want to do a little recap of what we spoke about last week, which we went over love languages, and we gave you the definition. We told you how they worked in compatibility. Sometimes they do work, sometimes they don't, and also in different relationships, how it's important to know your parents. I called my mom. That was fun. We actually shared the same love languages, which I didn't know. And then Jeff gave us some advice about learning to communicate and learning each other's love languages if your love languages in the relationship are different, and how you can overcome that and how you can understand each other a little bit better, right? So I want to just ask you, did you ever ask your parents of what their love language were?
So I grew up with my mom. And I never asked her about her love language. Never got her to take the test. But I definitely think that I could tell what her love language is. She's very much an acts of service, quality time type person.
And do you think that compares with yours as well?
A little bit, but not exactly. A little different.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important to know that whether it's your friends, again, your parents, your best friend or cousins or whatever, family, not just romantically. And I think why we tend to have a lot of friends is because they feed one of those 5 love languages, if you think about it, right? This episode is sponsored by this self-improvement book called The Red Flags I've Repeatedly Ignored. And it's such an amazing book. It's by this author named Brianna McCabe, and she, is coming from a perspective of hurt, but then she kind of teaches other people how to come from that or avoid it, you know? And I think that's really important. And we're actually going to be interviewing her a little bit later in this episode, so stay tuned for that.
The red flags I repeatedly ignored. So I've ignored a lot of red flags in my relationship, like a lot. Let's see what this book can teach me.
Recognize the red flags and build the relationship you deserve. Someone who doesn't respect your time isn't worth dating. He's aware of the problem, but does nothing to change it. A red flag you clearly need to avoid.
The ones you have to be most careful for are the ones that are really charming and suave.
Oh, hey.
What's up, girl?
His smile is bright, but his words are overwhelming.
I'm looking at the love of my life. These earrings and this hair. Delicious. You did all this for me?
He does too much, too soon.
You wanna go back to my place?
Seems like a huge red flag to me. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about being aware of your expectations and breaking old patterns. In my past relationship, coming home wasn't the best thing for me. Every time I came home, I felt ignored, as if I wasn't important. Well, you are important, and having someone who doesn't show you that is another red flag you shouldn't ignore. One of the major red flags is when your partner never seems to trust you. They ignore your boundaries and invade your privacy. Sounds toxic to me. Recognize these red flags and learn your self-worth. Cheers to having healthy relationships that you deserve.
Grab your copy today. The Red Flags I Repeatedly Ignored by Brianna McCabe.
I want to go into, what does love bombing mean, Jeff? Do we know?
Love bombing. So love bombing is a person that shows you an intense level of affection for the purposes of manipulating you.
And really, and shows it to you fast.
Yeah, very
Right.
fast.
Yeah.
Very fast.
And do you see that, and do you feel that that happens a lot in dating, or can it also happen later in the relationship?
Yeah, it could absolutely happen later on, okay?
So at any point.
It could happen at any point, but I think what we're talking about is, I think we need to know that it's happening before it happens.
Okay, like
Right?
signs to look for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like what are some signs you think that we can look for? Because I know some people are off rip, like affectionate,
Yeah.
when they get comfortable around something that they like, right? Like me, off rip, I see a dog, oh my God, come here, it's so cute. You know what I mean? Like, not like, all jokes aside, that's clearly not how a relationship works, but I know people that were raised in a very open home, right? A very, how do I say that? Affectionate home.
Verbally,
Physically,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So when they go into the real world,
Yeah.
they assume that most people are like that, where then they can easily get manipulated, right? By a narcissist or by somebody that's like, oh, this girl's easy, you know, or this guy's easy. I can take advantage.
So what's hard about love bombing is that you don't know that it's happening while it's happening, right? Because you might think,
it's a compliment.
Yeah, it's a compliment, or it's something that poetic, right? Or something nice, right? But the intention of the individual, they might not even understand. So love bombing may not be something somebody is doing intentionally all the time either, right? That's what's so tricky, because I think we got to a space now where we're saying, oh, love bombing just because they're saying really good things to you, or because they dedicate songs to you, or because they make you, they put you in some type of pedestal. We're like, oh, they're love bombing, right? That's not always love bombing, right? It depends on the intention that the other person has. Like you said, some people are very affectionate. Latino homes, we're very like touchy and we're very like huggy.
Welcoming,
Right, and our generation, right, millennials, we grew up in R&B. Right, and R&B
with
talks
the radio,
a lot.
you know what I'm saying,
Yo,
with the boombox.
Yes, exactly.
And that's all the love I feel like most of us are looking for right now, is that kind of love. Like, confess to me, you know, that you miss me and when it's raining outside.
My favorite group of all time is Boyz II Men. I've seen them in concert like 3 times, and they are so big on expressing themselves. Right, so it could be love bombing. It's love bombing when you feel uncomfortable. Right, so if I'm doing something and I say a bunch of sweet things to you, you know, oh my God, you're so beautiful, and I want to take you out, and I think, you know, you're just an amazing person all the time, and it just feels like, whoa, like it's a lot right now. You know, and I send you text, good morning, flowers, and the next day I send you some flowers to your office, right, and you feel like, whoa, that's a lot.
But here's the thing: what if it isn't a lot for someone who's never had it? Right? So that's the tricky part.
Right. So then the other part from there is, what's the intention of the person doing it?
Yeah. And most people aren't honest about that.
And you're not going to know.
And in this day and age,
that's what I mean, right?
So it's so hard to recognize the signs of love bombing. And you know, at the end of the day, like you said, it's important to just know what feels uncomfortable for you. If it feels like it's being too fast. If you know what I've noticed, for me, what love bombing is when someone's like, hey baby, sir, my name is Juju or Jalissa, refer to me as that, like, or hey sweetie, like a lot of, what are those called? Not affirmation. For me, it's the words of endearment without us even getting to the first date or even after that. You know, it's like, hey baby, like, I'm sorry, you just got my number. We just transitioned from a dating app to phone number, and now you're calling me baby. Like, that's
so that's uncomfortable in words of endearment. That's not necessarily love bombing.
But I'm saying, but what I mean to say is that, so it would start with that, and then it's like, hey sweetie, send me a picture, and then it's all these things that they're not love bombing, but for me, that turn to red flags.
Yes.
That could lead to love. That could lead to love bombing. Is what I've picked up on now that I'm a little bit more conscious of what love bombing looks like.
Right, because the aspect of love bombing, right? Bombing, like putting many things all at once. Like you said in the beginning, intensity. Too fast.
Yeah.
Right?
When there's no establishment. Right. Another way is, how do you, a question I have for you is, how do you correct somebody that, because I've corrected people calling me sweetie or sexy or baby. What's another way to correct somebody that is like that?
Well, I think we need to communicate what makes us feel uncomfortable, right?
So setting a boundary.
Yeah, I think setting a boundary is really important, because sexy is one of those words. Not everybody thinks sexy is a bad thing. Some people want to be called sexy. I've met girls that are like, I like to be called sexy. I like to feel sexy, right? And I've met some other girls that are like, don't call me sexy. There's a sexual connotation to sexy.
Exactly. What I think for me, it's when it's an older guy that's calling me that. You know what I mean? Like, there's this person that I've worked with, and he owns this restaurant, and once in a blue, he'll hire me to like go and do the like flamingo dancing and all that stuff. And he finally found me on Facebook. And now he's like, "What up, sexy?" And I responded. I'm like, "Okay, whatever. I guess every time you see me, I am wearing something sexy, all right?" And then it's just like every other sentence is that, and it's like, how do I correct this when I've kind of already indulged in it?
And you just said something really, really important. You said, "I guess I am wearing something sexy."
Yeah.
Right. So if he's saying to you, "Hey, what's up, sexy?" and you are wearing something sexy.
Well, I'm not now, and now we're communicating through Facebook.
Right. So is it any more appropriate for him to tell you, "Hey, sexy," when you are wearing something sexy, if you don't like to be told sexy?
Yes and no.
Yeah, that's the problem right there. Right? And I think that's the hard part in relationships and in communication. Right?
Yeah.
It's that yes and no. And I feel like many times it's coming from the end of the female.
Okay.
Right? I feel like many times as a female, we're the guys that are talking to you guys. Mm-hmm. We're the ones trying to, like we said in one episode, the first episode, court you. Mm-hmm. Right? So sometimes we may not know when we're going too far.
Right.
You know? And if you don't tell us, if you don't say, "Hey, this really doesn't make me feel comfortable," then we don't know. But then also, if you tell us, then we should know how to stop.
Yeah. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, again, like, you don't go to a crackhead and be like, "Hey, what up, crackhead?" Like, you know what I mean? You don't. So, I mean.
Well, some people might. Right? Some people might. Some people might be like, "Yo, you a crackhead, bro. Get away from me."
You know,
right?
I don't go to a dog, be like, "What up, dog?" Or to just because it's dressed like that. I mean.
Some people do. Some people do, right?
And I get it, and I'm just being funny about it. But at the end of the day, you know, like it's also, I guess for me, it's like I understand that is a possibility that does happen. And of course, if I'm dressed in a sexual way or whatever the case may be, I had this, you know, fancy outfit on, or, you know, for entertainment purposes, I understand why he would. But it's like now we're.
But do you understand why he would? Because again,
I do.
I still think it's not appropriate though.
I'm sorry?
If you don't feel comfortable.
But that's what I'm saying. Now it's my job to correct it. So that's why I asked. That's why I asked, how does a female correct that of a man with that word of an endearment when it's uncomfortable? Yeah. Without hurting that man. Sure. Ego. Because it's not, whether it's coming from a manipulative place or not, it's also like, okay, how do we.
Is it ever okay?
Ever right? Okay for what?
Right. For somebody, for example, if a trigger word for you is sexy, is it ever okay for a man to call you sexy? How about if you're really into that guy? Dude is super hot. Is it okay for him to say, "Hey, what's up, sexy? How are you?"
But this is where we have to establish the relationship, right? And this is what the whole thing about love bombing is. Sure. Right?
It's where it starts.
It's where it starts, right? So it's a matter of when can it be okay in a relationship to be said, right? And that is, if there is no establishment, like me and him have a business relationship. So for me, I don't feel like it's okay, even though I am dressed that way when you hire me. But I haven't communicated that. So that's my end, and that's where I need to work on to make sure that that's communicated.
Yeah, and I think it's also hard for many women to communicate this sometimes because of what they feel is going to be the repercussion or the consequence to you guys communicating in a certain way. So if you tell a guy, "Hey, I really don't appreciate that," will the guy lash back out at you, call you a name, offend you in some way, right? And is that something you want to go through? So I feel like some people just try to avoid that altogether. So let me not tell this person it makes me feel uncomfortable because the consequence might be more uncomfortable.
Right. So,
Right. So I think that's also important when looking at love bombing, right? Because you need to kind of express to the person, this is too fast.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a question for you. Okay. You especially, you meet a lot of celebrities, you meet a lot of different people. If a man comes up to you and you are really attracted to that person, and say you guys talked a little bit, maybe in a project you guys worked on, finally asks you out, says, "You know what? I got something going on in California this weekend. Why don't I fly you over? We have dinner over in San Antonio, and we'll see how things go." How do you feel about it?
Well, don't throw me with a good time.
Yeah.
No, one, because I've never done that, but two, I would have to feel safe enough to do that and make sure it aligns with what I got going on here.
Right, but what would really make you feel safe?
What would make me feel safe?
Sure.
Just the openness of if anything I ask, he knows how to answer, and it's not feeling like, oh, well, don't worry about it, just come, don't, like brushing it off, which has happened.
Yeah.
So I also need to make sure it aligns with what I got going on, because I'm not desperate anymore. And two, you know, it has to be, I just have to feel secure and that I will have my own space. I will be picked up, and whatever you're offering does align. And yeah.
So you have to check a couple of boxes.
Of course.
Before that's even a possibility, but that can still be a possibility, right?
Correct.
The way you would do something like that.
Correct.
Right? And maybe in different spaces, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But I think there's also a lot of risk in that.
Of course.
For many reasons, right? And that's where love bombing also comes from.
Yeah.
You know, because that is an aspect of love bombing. If he's doing it specifically to manipulate you to have sex, for example.
Which is
right?
always a thought, right? And I've always asked my friends who have been flown out like that, and, you know, is that an expectation? And not to put my friends on a hot seat, they're like, but who cares? No, I care.
But
I care.
That's why people get love bombed.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Like sometimes people get love bombed
Their morals
in
go
those
out the
manipulative
window.
ways.
Yeah.
Right, because your morals and your checklist go out the window.
Yeah.
Right? If you still have your checklist of safety for whatever reason or whatever it is, it's like, hey, you know, that's a great idea, but I'm just getting to know you.
Yeah.
Right? Do we want to do dinner in California this weekend when this is the first time we're actually going out? I don't know.
You didn't say it was the first time, but
Yeah, I mean, I did. Did I say that? I did.
I don't think so.
I said that. I said this is a person you haven't gone out with, but you're working with. It's the first time he's asking you out.
Okay. Well, working with to me was like we've already established some type of connection.
Okay, yeah, but
that's
you've
why
never
I feel
actually
okay.
gone out. Like,
Okay,
gone
understood.
out when you're actually going on a
Still
date.
an option. Okay.
Right? When you still okay.
Still okay.
It's okay for you to, right? Or you know, this guy has a certain, he's well off in a certain type of way. The next morning, you guys had such a great date, for example.
I'm deep diving on his
right?
social media.
Okay, but you had such a great date, and then he sends you a bouquet of flowers, right? And says thank you. You see? Here's the thing. Okay, how
I've
do you
never
know?
had that. So
Right.
for me,
But how do you know that's love bombing or not? See, it also depends on where it's coming from him. Now, if you, in your mind, are like, oh, whoa, like this, you know, this guy wants sex all of a sudden, right? You might not be able to, you might not be checking your own morals at the door.
but that's not true. So at least with me, I have standards and I have respect
Yeah.
for myself, which I can be honest and say that back in the day I didn't know what that was. But now that I've gone through my healing journey, and I'm still going through it. I mean, the healing journey is never an ending journey, right? It's a journey, right? I know my value and I know my worth.
Sure.
So you can do all that. But if I don't feel that you're paying attention to me and getting to know me, then to me, whether his intentions were pure or not of what he was doing, I'm still going to have my boundary, right? I'm still going to set that, and I'm going to be like, well, thank you so much. What was, what was this for?
Right,
You
and
know?
that communication is what's important.
Right.
That's how you
It's
stop the
asking
love bombing.
and hearing to what they say.
Right, because if you just continuously allow that to
To
happen.
accept it, right.
Yeah.
Then they're
because
like,
you
I
just-
got her.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. What are some behaviors that seem cute, but that are actually like red flags for you? Or turned out to be red flags later?
Turned out to be red flags. So for me, it would be the beginning of like the name calling prematurely that has led to their intentions just wanting to sleep with me. Or it'll lead down the line to asking for a photo or then sending me videos of what they're doing, like without like volunteering, without me asking. And those things, they may think it's cute, but for me, I know in return, they're asking for that in return, right? And I'm not comfortable sending you a video of me doing regular things. I do that for my social media. Like, and then if I did direct you to my story about what I'm doing, you're like, oh, but I want a personal one. So, it kind of gets a little...
How do you answer that? How do you answer, we had a great date, you know, we've known each other for a little while, and the guy says to you, because I don't know, guys, I don't know why you guys are doing this. Oh, send me a video of yourself. Like, what do you mean by that?
Or a photo,
right, or a photo. I always feel like when a guy's asking that, there's some sexual connotation to it. I'm gonna be honest, right? Because why are we asking for a regular video of yourself or a regular photo, right? Maybe, hey, you know, you're telling me about something you're wearing, and I'm like, oh, that sounds really nice. Send me a photo.
Like it has to make sense, yeah.
Right,
but if it's on a random,
exactly, it has to make sense.
I get it. Men are visual learners, and I get all that, but I don't know. I feel like that is something that come see me in person if you want to see me. You don't necessarily, let's take the photo together. Like, let's build that memory. Let's build that connection. If I do randomly, sporadically want to send you a photo of me, then let me do it. I don't feel being asked it with no content behind it. It's kind of random. You know what I mean? So, especially if we haven't established that in the relationship yet.
Okay, that's true. Where do red flags come from for you, though? Like, how does a red flag become a red flag for you?
See, I don't know.
Is it universal? Are red flags universal?
Okay.
What do you think?
Let me ask you this. Is a red flag considered a deal breaker? Is that what we're calling a red flag, deal breakers?
I don't know.
I think... Could red flags turn green?
Right. I think so.
Okay, I think so, too.
I'm from the space where a red flag is only cautionary, right? And requires communication. Right. I don't think a red flag is always... That's it. I'm done. Right?
But see, a red flag could be a naive of that person not knowing that they're doing something until it's addressed. Sure. And that's when it can turn into green, because now they're aware of this and they choose to change it. Yeah. However, the red flag can, if they're aware of this now and they choose to do it, then now that's considered a red flag and you're okay with that. Well, but some people will be like, oh, he got 5 kids, that's a red flag.
Right.
There's a lot of women that think that.
Is that a no? Right?
I think that's a deal breaker for that person. Right. I wouldn't say a red flag. It still can be.
I like that. I feel like some things should be deal breakers, not red flags.
Okay.
Right?
So then so we know they're two different things.
5 kids might be a deal breaker for you, but that's not necessarily has to mean that's a red flag for somebody.
Right.
Right? Because another person may have 3 kids or 4 kids that might go well with the 5 kids, right?
Right.
So
now we know that whoever they get with, they don't want to have more kids because they already got it collectively.
Right, and that makes it a green flag, right? Because I don't want to be with somebody that wants more kids. This one already got 5.
There we go.
You see, so I like that. I feel like some things should be deal breakers, not red flags.
Love that.
Right, but when is a red flag a red flag?
When a person knows that they're doing it and still choose to do it. Like a fuckboy.
Wait, what? Huh?
Like a fuckboy. That's a whole red flag.
Is that a red flag or is that a deal breaker?
That too. But there's women out there that like a fuckboy.
But we just said that there's a difference between a red flag and a deal breaker.
Yeah, but there's women. A fuckboy,
it might be a deal breaker, not a red flag.
But there's women that like fuckboys.
It's a red flag that he's a
toxic.
fuckboy?
Okay, so now we're getting into, let's throw toxicity in there. That's a red flag. So
what's toxic about it is a red flag.
Got it.
Not just the fact them being toxic.
Got it.
Because what's toxic to me might not be toxic to you.
Okay, so let's talk about something that's toxic to both of us. Someone who's very argumentative.
Okay.
Right? Someone who
might be blunt.
Sure.
Might describe themselves as blunt.
Oh, are you trying to?
I'm just saying.
Are you trying to?
No. I'm not saying you. Right?
I wasn't talking about me.
Saying that.
But you feel some type of way.
No jab. No jab. Right? I'm just saying somebody might be blunt.
Okay.
And to me, it sounds argumentative. And to me, that's a red flag because it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
Like, I feel like red flags are things that may make you individually feel uncomfortable.
Not necessarily. I don't think a red flag is an uncomfortable feeling.
Give me an example.
It can be something that just doesn't bring me peace. Someone that may be needy. Someone needy in the sense.
Does it make you feel uncomfortable? Needy and taking away your peace doesn't make you feel uncomfortable?
No, it's just bothering me.
Is that uncomfortable?
Is it?
When you're bothered, do you not feel uncomfortable?
Is it?
When you're bothered?
Okay, I guess it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're uncomfortable.
All right, ask me that question again.
Okay, right? All right. I don't even know what the question was that way. Okay. All right. Let's go back, right?
Yeah.
I think red flags, what I was saying is that I feel like red flags are things that make you feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
What are some red flags for you, let's say?
Well, someone that maybe can be needy and want my attention a lot after I've already established that I may not have time, and that they still try to take away my time, right? Like maybe texting too much or calling me every second or whatever the case may be. I get it, you're trying to communicate, but also I just communicated, I don't have the time.
Somebody that doesn't listen to you when you've expressed something
Correct.
is a red flag.
That's a red flag. Does that make me feel uncomfortable?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right?
Okay, great.
For me, like smoking is a red flag.
Oh, totally.
But for me, right?
No, but
not all smoking though. Like for me.
Okay, hold on.
Maybe too much smoking.
Okay, hold on.
I'm right with a little hookah here and there.
Sure. When it consumes a person and they are in denial that it consumes their life. If they need it for breakfast, they need it for dinner, they need it for lunch, they need it for snack time.
Yeah, it consumes them.
That is the
red flag for us.
Red flag for us.
Right.
For us.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there might be somebody out there that needs that wants that because they're like that.
But then
And
that's
not a
a
red flag for them.
toxic trait. Could we
Is it
say
though?
that that's a toxic trait?
So now are we saying toxic traits are things that you do that are not healthy?
Yes.
Anything you do is that's
Not
not healthy?
everything, but
Or that
if you're
consumes
aware,
your life in some way?
if you're aware of something and you choose to keep doing it, that is a toxic trait, is it not?
I feel like toxic trait is when it affects your life in a negative way. So to a certain extent, yes. Okay. To a certain extent, yes.
So if you're attracting someone that does the same behaviors as you, knowing that it's bad for you, but you're attracting a partner that smokes as much as you do, is that not something toxic?
Toxic. I think it can be.
Right, okay.
Because you know that it's toxic. But if you don't identify it yourself that it's wrong, then maybe you don't know it's toxic. Some people are very much okay with smoking.
Yeah.
Right? And they will
And people are very much
vaping
okay.
and so forth, right?
And people are very much okay with love bombing.
Yeah, absolutely, right? But I think when we're in a space where, all right, so now are we judging people for all the negative behaviors, all the unhealthy things that they're not doing? Is that what we're doing?
No, we're not.
People?
I don't think we should.
Yeah.
I think it's more of, okay, being aware. Does that align with what we want in art for our lives? This goes back to episode 1 where we talked about, interview people, collect data, see if that aligns with what you got going on in your life, right? Don't adapt to someone else's lifestyle if that has nothing to do with yours. Right. Because what you'll end up doing is settling, and you'll also end up compromising a lot.
Sure.
And not feeling loved at the end of that, or feeling like you're being heard, or feeling like there's reciprocation in the relationship, right? So it'll become one-sided eventually. So there has to be a balance, you know what I mean? I think that we just established red flags can turn into green, right? I think that red flags are not deal breakers. We don't think red flags can be a toxic trait for some people if they're aware of the situation and you choose to keep doing that, then you are the problem,
Do you recognize your own red flags? I don't know. We need to say them, I guess. I mean, you can.
We can talk about it. I'm an open book. We got a podcast for a reason.
All right.
Right.
What's one? How about one? Let's do one. Now, remember though, right? Red flags are only things that make you feel uncomfortable. So technically,
I wouldn't know.
Right?
How about what's a red flag that you think I have?
If you,
Let's ask you that.
well, here's the thing though, right?
Be honest.
Well, should we say what we feel is a red flag about one another?
Why not?
So I don't know that there's anything that you do that makes me feel uncomfortable.
Question. Does a red flag only exist in a dating romantic relationship, or could a red flag be in a friendship,
oh, absolutely.
platonic
Absolutely.
dynamic?
Oh, absolutely. There could definitely be red flags in a friendship. There could be red flags in a relationship in your family.
Yeah.
Right? There could be red flags in your parenting of your children. Right? I think there could be red flags in anything.
Okay.
Just the
Across
concept
the
of
board.
red flag means caution, right? Something's wrong.
Got it.
Right? That's
Put
where
a
the
pin in
whole
it.
red flag concept came from. But in relationship, in dating, in being single, right?
Okay.
Do you recognize your own red flags? You know, or what can be red flags? What are some things that can make somebody else uncomfortable about you? I'll share one. I am very open about my diagnosis of ADHD. I have ADHD, right?
We have ADHD.
You sharing that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
That's not a red flag, though.
Well, for some people it might be. Why? Because I might be in a date like this, and then go here, right? And then back here, right? And then talk to you about this thing, and then start talking about another thing. And to another person that may not understand that, it could be a red flag.
So a red flag happens when there's lack of information?
Yes, it can, right? And lack of reciprocation, like you said, right? Reciprocated communication. It's really important. If I'm usually the one to say, hey, just want to let you know, I have ADHD, right? So sometimes I'll look in different places, but I know what you're saying. I know what you're talking about, right? And sometimes I might switch topics, and I apologize for that. And I apologize for that beforehand, you know, because I know that may be one of my own red flags for somebody else. See, I don't think that they are red flags like for me. Like,
okay, yeah.
Oh, they're my own red flags, right? So sometimes I think that it's not just me recognizing my own red flags, but it's me recognizing how they may be perceived as such by another person I'm going out with.
I don't like to label myself as anything I don't think I am, so I don't think having ADHD is a red flag. However, I can see how it can be perceived as that because someone lacks information of what it is.
Right.
And if you choose to treat me different,
sure,
can I consider that as a red flag?
But this is what we're saying. We're saying
kidding,
that red flags are not universal, right?
Right.
We're saying that this whole concept of that's a red flag and it should be across the line for everybody is not the case.
I agree, yeah.
Right? Because it really depends on the individual and doesn't make them feel uncomfortable. But there are deal breakers.
Yes.
Right? And there are
like cigarette smokers.
Right.
It's a deal breaker.
I think also that there could be red flags for in universal terms to a certain extent, no? Right? Like red flags. I remember there was a time when the whole flag thing was happening and they had these bunch of memes that were like, oh, this and that's a red flag. Do you remember that? So I feel like there are sometimes maybe some universal things that could be red flags.
Okay.
Do I think about it right away?
No, it's hard. I have to be, it comes up when I'm in.
I feel like we're more conscious emotionally now.
Yeah.
I feel like that also comes with maturity, right? When you're more mature emotionally, you understand that people have the ability to change.
Amen.
Right? And some red flags may not be red flags. They just need some communication. Where maybe when you're younger.
So for me, that's why I'm saying I'm not going to categorize something that is not universally a red flag. Like for me, someone who has 5 kids, that's not a deal breaker or a red flag for me because I want to understand why. Why do you have 5 kids? Did you adopt them? Did you end up having twins 2 times? You know what I mean? Was this? You never know. And I feel like people would want to write someone off really quick, but that comes from a subconscious place too.
Is that a deal breaker?
What?
5 kids.
I've spoken to somebody who had 5 kids.
Yeah, not me.
You know, again, 3 kids, 5 kids, whatever the case may be. I know a lot of women feel like when they're single parents with a certain amount of kids already, we're like, damn, I already lowered my value as a woman, and I hate that, right? Like, I have a really close friend of mine who has 3 beautiful kids, and she subconsciously writes herself off before going on a date because she's like, no one's gonna want a woman with 3 kids. You know, and this comes from back in the day. I'm talking about in the.
I mean, there are cultural spaces where that's true.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I don't think that, like, if without understanding why she's a single parent with 3 kids, because what people don't understand that she came from a marriage.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, but it's not about the why. It's about the fact that it's there.
But
right?
that's what I'm trying to, what I would love for us to correct. Is to understand why something is.
Be more open to the why.
Because we have ADHD doesn't make us retarded.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It makes us, whatever you want to put it, but we think differently.
we think differently.
So
Yeah.
therefore, it's if you understood.
We're not neurotypical. We're neurodivergent.
Right. I think that's a superpower.
It is a superpower.
But people make it seem like we have a disability.
Sometimes, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And it could be a red flag for some people, right?
Yeah.
But that could be also a red flag for us. If I feel like you are making me feel like I'm like weird or something, then that's a red flag for me.
Right. Because of your lack of education.
Empathy, maturity, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So on that note, I want to take you guys over to the Coach's Corner with my co-host Jeff, where he deep dives a little bit more about red flags and love bombing.
Welcome to the Coach's Corner. I am your relationship coach, Jeff. Wow, what a great episode we had on love bombing and red flags. Let's go a little bit further. Love bombing. Is it intentional? Do people do it on purpose? Okay, is it something that's done accidentally? Think about what we spoke about a little bit, right? Love bombing as being something that comes from the aspect of control. Somebody wants to control you or manipulate you in some way. Do we always do that, though, with the intention to manipulate? Not everything that comes with a lot of love or a lot of words has to be manipulative, right? You think of, we spoke a little bit about the music back in the day and how you had this R&B music that was very, very, very love-focused. Well, remember, love bombing comes from what is the intention of the person doing it. So a lot of the poets and the music, their intention wasn't to manipulate the person. Their intention was to show that the intense feeling that they actually had for that person. Think about where it comes from. Love bombing is usually a child who was manipulated themselves, lied to. Right? They had to prove something to their parents. They had to ask for love in different ways, and love was taken away from them often. It was a need for attention, okay? It's always a space of hurt and pain that now turns into a space of manipulation. When you think of what love bombing is, think about how you feel about what the person is saying. Just because a person is being sweet to you, just because a person is being poetic to you, or just because a person is saying a lot of things that may be said to feel good, if you don't feel right about it, you should say something, okay? Because that's when it does become love bombing. When you may not feel right about it, you don't say anything, and you just continue allowing it to happen. Remember that you have every right to stop those types of interactions, and that's actually how you catch it, right? If you stop it and the person gets upset that you don't appreciate it, then you know that it may not be coming from the most intentional space, okay? But open yourself up to things that do feel good, if they feel good. Communicate with your person you're dating, or your partner, that these things are things that connect with you, okay? And it's not always something with a manipulative background. Some of us want to experience love differently. Some of us are conditioned to experience love differently, and we do so because of that. So remember, guys, always be mindful, right, about the other person's intentions, but be very mindful about your own. How do you feel about these interactions? Think about this. The composition of the things that create that love bombing are the red flags, right? And when we think about the red flags, what does that mean? Are we always Sherlocking about the things that are wrong with the person you're with? Okay. It's always great to be aware. Always great to look at the things that make you uncomfortable, okay? Let's not just focus, though, on the red flags all the time. Let's focus on some of the green flags, right? And the red flags, are they red flags because you don't like them or because they were red flags to you before? How do you really know if the red flag is something you should completely avoid? Sometimes give yourself a little space, give the person a little time to really see what's going on and the truth behind who that person is. okay? There are some things that should be non-negotiable. Don't forget your non-negotiables, right? Because if you continue being with people that you may not actually be attracted to, right, for many different reasons, but because one thing is good or the other thing is good, then you might set yourself up for failure. Remember, you're looking at the red flags of others. Be also aware of the red flags of yourself. Understand that they could change, and red flags can become green flags, okay? Because we're all changing and we're all trying to grow together. But guys, remember, like I always say, date intentionally, date patiently, and date with care, but always keep on dating. Next time.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Part 2 is going to be exciting because I have the honor of interviewing Brianna McCabe on the book that she wrote called The Red Flags I Repeatedly Ignored. So stay tuned and can't wait to see you then.
Like, take the love blinders off and realize, what the hell did I just put myself through?
Yeah. Then phase 2, where they start gaslighting. So gaslighting is when they start to have this like mental ambush against you, and they take what you say and then they twist it and then they make you seem like you're the victim.
Find someone that likes me and I like them. What? That's so rare. Okay. And he listens. Oh my
And
God.
then he surprises
I think
me.
I got a winner. Yeah.
A relationship should make you feel healthy and secure. And there's obviously going to be like, you know, arguments or things that you don't align on, but it's how you kind of move through it together.
Juju here. Looking for our previous episode? Click here on the left. If you're looking for any of our videos on our channel, click here on the right. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below.